I never thought I'd be the guy writing about something like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I was married to Lisa for about 8 years. We were the kind of couple people envied: good-looking, successful careers, a nice house, and everything seemed perfect. At least that's what I thought. We had our fights, sure, but I always believed we had some solid foundation. That was until I started noticing little things that didn't add up. It all started about 3 months ago. Lisa, who's always been a bit of a bitch when she's annoyed, suddenly got colder, more distant. At first, I thought maybe work was stressing her out or she was just going through a phase. She'd brush me off when I asked how her day was, and I'd catch her sneaking her phone into the bathroom or locking her screen when I'd walk into the room. Small stuff, but enough to make me suspicious. I wasn't the jealous type, but I knew Lisa. She loved her independence, but she also loved her little secrets. Still, I didn't jump to conclusions. I figured maybe she was just stressed or had a guy friend she was venting to. Then things got weird. She started coming home late, claiming she was working late or meeting with friends, but I'd call her and she'd ignore my calls or send vague texts back. Her behavior towards me changed, too, less affectionate, more dismissive. Honestly, I felt like I was losing her without knowing why. It was frustrating because I kept trying to press her about it and she'd get bitchy, tell me I was overreacting, or accuse me of being paranoid. She'd say, "You're so insecure, Mike. Just because I'm busy doesn't mean I'm cheating on you." That line stuck with me. One night I decided to do a little digging. Nothing crazy, just wanted to see if I could catch her in a lie. I checked her phone when she was in the shower. Nothing obvious at first, no random texts or numbers, no suspicious calls. But then I noticed she'd been deleting her browser history and hiding some emails. That made me more suspicious. I remembered she was working on some research project about fossils, big deal for her career. She'd been excited about a breakthrough, supposed to be published soon. I thought maybe she was hiding something related to that, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Then I stumbled onto something that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was just snooping around her email casually, trying to see if she slipped up. And I found a thread, an email chain between her and some guy named Mark. At first glance, I thought it was just a colleague or a friend. I opened it, and the tone was way too intimate. Flirty, suggestive, talking about meeting up, about touching base in person, and even plans to meet late at night. My stomach sank. The emails were recent, within the past week. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with some guy who was supposedly her research partner. And that's when I realized she'd been lying about everything: her late nights, her distance, her strange behavior. It all added up now. The subtle shifts, the secretive phone, the deleted emails. She had been lying right to my face, and I'd been too blind or too afraid to see it. I felt a mixture of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. The worst part was knowing she'd been lying about her feelings, that she'd been hiding a whole new life from me. I didn't want to confront her on the spot. I needed to think. But I also knew I couldn't pretend I didn't see what was right in front of me. That night, after I found the emails, I just sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling like my world was crashing down around me. The next day, I didn't sleep much. I kept turning over everything I'd seen, trying to piece together how long this had been going on, how I missed all the signs. I felt numb but also furious. How could she do this? After everything we built, she was out there screwing some guy behind my back. The fact that her research partner, Mark, was now part of the picture made it worse. I thought back to the last few months, the subtle shifts in her attitude, her dismissiveness, the late nights. It all made sense now. She had been sneaking around, lying to me about everything, and I didn't even see it coming. I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this fog of betrayal, but I also wanted to be strategic. I didn't want to lose my temper or do something I'd regret. That afternoon, I waited until she was supposed to be at her research meeting, which I now knew was a lie. I called her phone, but she didn't answer. When I checked her location, she was still home. I took a deep breath, grabbed the letter opener from the kitchen, and waited in the living room. When she finally walked in, I knew it was time. She looked surprised, nervous even when she saw me sitting there. I didn't bother with small talk. I pulled out her phone and the email thread I'd found. Her jaw tightened and she started to lie immediately, spinning some ridiculous story about how Mark was just a friend, that they'd been working together for years and that I was paranoid. She said, "You're overreacting, Mike. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I'm just helping him with some research. It doesn't mean anything." Her voice was dripping with contempt. It almost made me want to laugh. Her lies were so transparent. I told her I knew everything. I told her I'd seen the emails, that I knew she's been lying to me for months about where she was, who she was with. She scoffed, told me I was crazy, that I was jealous, insecure, that I didn't understand her work. But I did understand something. She was sleeping with Mark and she was doing it behind my back because she thought she could get away with it. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. How could she betray me like this? After all we'd been through, she just tossed it aside for some stupid affair. She started crying then, but it wasn't genuine. It was fake tears, the kind she used when she wanted to manipulate a situation. She kept insisting she loved me, that Mark was just a mistake, that it wasn't serious. She begged me not to tell anyone, said she'd end it, promised she'd be different. But I wasn't stupid. I knew that was just another lie. I looked at her and realized I was done. Done with her lying, done with her cheating, done with feeling like I was the fool in this whole mess. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying the moment I uncovered everything. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated. How had I missed all the signs? How had I been so blind? I kept asking myself if I should even stay, or if I should just walk away and forget her. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her get away with this without consequences. She thought she could cheat and lie her way out of it, but I was just getting started. I had to plan my next move, and it wasn't going to be pretty. The next few days were a whirlwind. I couldn't focus at work, kept replaying everything in my head. The anger was boiling under the surface, but I also felt this deep, gnawing sadness. I'd trusted her, hell, I'd loved her, and she'd thrown it all away for some stupid fling. And Mark, that guy was supposed to be my partner on the fossil project, someone I'd trusted to help me make the breakthrough of my career. Instead, he'd been screwing my wife behind my back, messing with something I'd poured my soul into. It was a bitter blow. I decided I needed to get more evidence. I wanted to be sure I had everything, every email, every message, every piece of proof that I could use to finally confront her with the truth. So I started snooping again, carefully. I didn't want her to catch me, but I also knew I had to be meticulous. I checked her emails, her social media, her phone, anything that might give me more insight into how deep this thing went. What I found was worse than I expected. There were multiple messages, not just between her and Mark, but also between her and other people, some of her friends, her coworkers. She'd been lying to everyone, hiding her affair behind a web of deception. She was convincing herself she was in the right, that her work was more important, that her marriage was just a minor inconvenience. But I could see through her facade now. It was disgusting how easily she lied, how she spun stories to justify her actions. One email exchange stood out. It was from just 2 days ago, and it was between her and Mark again. They were planning a meetup that she claimed was work-related, but the tone was far too intimate. They arranged to meet late at night at a hotel near her office. I felt my stomach clench hard when I read it. That's when I knew for sure this wasn't just some innocent mistake. They'd been sneaking around for weeks, maybe even months. I also found some pictures. She'd taken selfies with Mark, smiling, looking like they shared some secret joke. I recognized the backgrounds: that hotel, her favorite coffee shop, some park she'd been to a few times. She was flaunting it, even in her lies. How could she be so reckless? How could she look me in the eye every day and act like everything was normal? The worst part was realizing how much she'd lied to me about her feelings. She told me she loved me, that I was the only one. But her actions told a completely different story. She was with Mark, physically involved, and probably had been for a while. I felt like my heart had been torn out. I'd always been the loyal one, the dependable husband, and she'd been out there betraying me, thinking she could hide it. Forever, I was furious at myself for trusting her so blindly. I kept asking, how did I miss all the signs? Did I really know her at all? Or was I just fooling myself into believing she was the woman I married? Every time I thought about the betrayal, my hands clenched into fists. I had to do something. I couldn't let her keep lying, keep sneaking around like she was invincible. If she thought she could get away with it, she was dead wrong. That's when I started planning how I would confront her. I decided I'd record her, get more proof, and then lay everything out on the table. I didn't want a messy fight, I wanted facts. I wanted her to see that I knew the truth and that she wasn't getting away with this. I'd be the one to hold all the cards. I also knew I had to prepare myself emotionally for the fallout. This was going to be a nightmare, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Not after what I'd uncovered. The day I finally decided to confront her, I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. My stomach was tied up in knots, and every fiber of my being told me I was about to tear my life apart. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't keep living in this lie. I had to face the truth head on. That evening, I told her I needed to talk. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk she's had lately, like she thought she was in control of the situation. I could see the flicker of annoyance behind her eyes, but she played it cool, as if nothing was wrong. We sat down in the living room and I just looked at her, gathering my courage. I pulled out my phone with the recordings and the evidence I'd collected. I played her the email chain between her and Mark. Her face immediately went pale, then flushed with anger. She scoffed and started trying her usual bullshit. "That's not what it looks like," she spat. "You're paranoid, Mike. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." She told me Mark was just a friend, that they were working on some project, that she'd never done anything physical with him. Her words sounded rehearsed, robotic, like she'd already decided how she was going to spin this. But I wasn't buying it. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything. Every little lie, every secret rendezvous. And what made it worse was that I'd seen the pictures, her with Mark, smiling, holding hands, looking like a damn couple. How could she even try to deny it now? Her face twisted in rage, and she started yelling, calling me crazy, accusing me of spying, of being jealous, all the usual crap she's been feeding me for months. I felt my blood boil. I told her I wasn't crazy, that I had proof, and that I was done pretending I didn't know what she was doing. I told her I was sick of her lying, sick of her fake tears, sick of her wasting my time with her bullshit. For the first time, I saw her lose her cool. She got up, pacing around the room, yelling that I was overreacting, that I was destroying our marriage for nothing. But I knew better. I knew the truth, and I was ready to put an end to her lies. After that confrontation, she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. I sat there trembling, my mind racing with anger, sadness, and a sense of betrayal so deep I thought I'd suffocate. I'd never felt this level of heartbreak before. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and now I realized I'd been living with a stranger all along. Someone capable of lying to my face, cheating behind my back, and pretending she still loved me when she was out there with Mark. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying everything, trying to make sense of how we got here. I thought about the life we built, the memories, the future we'd planned. I wondered if she even cared about any of it. Somewhere deep inside, I knew I'd have to make a choice: stay and fight for a marriage that was already broken, or cut my losses and move on. Either way, I was done being the fool. I was done being blind. The betrayal cut so deep, I didn't know how I'd ever trust her again, even if she begged for forgiveness. I realized something then. I was angry, yes, but I was also free from the illusion I'd been living under. And no matter what happened next, I knew I had to do what was right for me, even if it hurt. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever gone through. After confronting her, she tried to act like everything was normal, like she could spin her way out of it, but I wasn't buying that anymore. Every time she looked at me with that bitchy smirk, I felt a mix of rage and disappointment. I knew she was trying to manipulate me, to make me doubt what I saw and what I knew, but I was done listening to her bullshit. I started weighing my options. Part of me wanted to just pack my bags and walk away, leave her to fester in her lies. But I also wanted to expose everything, not just for myself, but to make her see she couldn't get away with this. I knew her phone was a goldmine, and I decided I needed to get some recordings. I bought a small voice recorder, slipped it into my pocket, and started recording our conversations, her phone calls, her angry accusations. I was planning to go nuclear, but I wanted the evidence to back up what I already knew. One night she came home late again. I was sitting on the couch pretending to be asleep, but I had the recorder ready. That's when I heard her on the phone talking in a hushed tone to Mark. I couldn't hear everything clearly, but I caught enough to know she was still lying, still sneaking around. She whispered, "We can't keep doing this. Tonight's the last time. I'm tired of hiding." And then I heard her laugh, that nasty, fake laugh that I'd come to hate. I pressed record, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. This was it. The proof I needed to finally end this nightmare. I also started digging into her research work, trying to find any inconsistencies or signs of tampering. Turns out, I uncovered something shocking. Some of her recent research submissions had been deliberately misstated, with findings extended to cover up her and Mark's field work. It was the biggest scientific betrayal I'd ever heard of, and it hit me like a punch in the gut. My wife and her partner had not only betrayed me emotionally, but had also manipulated a groundbreaking discovery that should have made my career. Instead, they'd stolen the glory, all for their own benefit. When I finally sat her down to confront her again, I told her everything I'd uncovered. I played her the recordings, showed her the evidence of the research manipulation, and told her I knew about her affair with Mark. Her reaction was a mix of anger, denial, and defiance. She yelled, called me insecure, accused me of spying because I was jealous. She even tried to gaslight me, making out like I was overreacting, that I was crazy for thinking she'd do something so desperate. All the usual bullshit. But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I told her she had one chance to come clean, or I'd take everything to the authorities in the scientific community. I told her I'd expose her, that her career was over if I did. She looked at me with pure contempt, sneered, and said she didn't care what I did. That was the moment I knew she wasn't going to change. She was too deep in her lies, too arrogant to admit she'd been caught. I packed a bag that night, knowing I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. I told her I was leaving, that I'd be filing for divorce, and that she'd never see me again if she didn't come clean and end her affair. She just laughed, a cold, hollow laugh, and told me to go ahead. Said she didn't need me, that she was better off without me. That's when I knew I had to go through with it, no matter how much it hurt. Now I'm in a place where I'm trying to piece my life back together. The betrayal stings, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. I've learned that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. And I've also learned that some people are just selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything good for their own gain. I don't know what's next for me, but I do know I'll never forget what I found out, and I'll always be cautious about who I trust again. This whole nightmare has taught me that sometimes the truth comes out in the most brutal way possible. And when it does, you've got to face it head on, even if it destroys everything you thought was real. After I moved out and filed for divorce, everything changed. The house felt empty without her, and for a while I oscillated between anger and numbness. I kept replaying everything in my mind: her lies, her betrayal, the way she looked when she thought she was getting away with it. The worst part was knowing I had trusted her for so many years, only to find out that she'd been spinning a web of deceit right under my nose. It was a brutal lesson in how people can hide their true selves, even from those who think they know them best. I threw myself into work to keep my mind busy, but the scars of this betrayal cut deep. I also went to see a therapist, not because I wanted to fix the marriage, but because I needed to understand how I'd let someone so manipulative get so close. It helped me realize that I'd been giving her the benefit of the doubt for too long, ignoring the signs and dismissing my gut instincts. Trust, I learned, isn't something to give lightly, and sometimes it's better to listen to that little voice in your head rather than dismiss it as paranoia. The fallout with her was messy. She tried to reach out a few times, calling me names, trying to guilt me into coming back, but I didn't respond. I knew I couldn't rebuild what was broken, not after what I'd seen, heard, and felt. I also made sure to gather everything I could to protect myself legally, especially given her manipulations with the research. I knew her career was a ticking time bomb, and I wanted to make sure I had proof of her misconduct if she ever tried to fight the divorce or spin stories about her innocence. Looking back now, I realize I've become a different person. I've learned that some betrayals are so profound they change you forever. I've become more cautious, more aware of how easy it is to be blinded by love and trust. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived what felt like an emotional apocalypse, and I'm slowly putting the pieces of my life back together. What I want others to understand from all this is simple. Trust is a fragile thing, and when it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. Don't ignore the signs, don't dismiss your instincts, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. People aren't always who they pretend to be. Sometimes they're hiding a darker side, and if you don't see it early, it can destroy everything you hold dear. So yeah, I lost my wife over this mess. I lost a lot of hope too, but I gained clarity. I now know what real betrayal looks like, and I've learned how to guard my heart better. I'll never forget what I found out, and I'll never let myself be so blind again. Life goes on, and I'm slowly rebuilding mine, one step at a time.